Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. It's your DC Spotlight for the week of February 18th, 2026. 8 books to talk about today, so a bit of a shorter week. I thought it was a little bit of a down week in a lot of ways. There's a couple books that I really, really enjoyed. The rest of them were just sort of okay. Um, Obviously, Absolute Batman continues to be a juggernaut. We have another first appearance. Absolute Poison Ivy showing up here. It really got me thinking about Absolute Batman and what it is about Batman in general. Why I'm not enjoying it as much as others. I mean, again, it's a huge juggernaut. We gave the warning last week. The 9.8 version, CGC graded 9.8 version of Absolute Batman has broken the $400 mark. but this last week they averaged, I think, like 123 new 9.8s per day.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, that's like, they grade books 5 days a week. So it's not, so they added like about 700. So don't pay that is what I'm saying. Like, don't get caught up in the hype because that price is going to come down as the market gets not flooded, but, supply and demand are going to meet and that price is going to come down. But I mentioned it last week, celebrities like Method Man or whatever talking about it. So I spent some time this last few days wonder, like, what is it about Absolute Batman that's not resonating with me? Why am I not enjoying it as much as others? And I have some thoughts about it, but I'm not going to get too into it in this particular episode because I almost think it's almost a full episode in and of itself. So we might do that as like a standalone episode. Who Batman is to me, what favorite versions I enjoy, why Absolute Batman's maybe not resonating as much as with me as it is for others. And then, news of, I don't know if everybody saw it, but Scott Snyder's been teasing the cover of Absolute Batman 20 for quite a while now. Finally came out today as we're recording this on the 17th, on Tuesday. And it's a big R, the black cover with a big R. Obviously, Robin.
I thought it was my name. So, that was Rocky.
I think it's way too early. Way too early to have this Batman feels like a kid. Feels like a sidekick in a lot of ways, without a mentor. He's sort of still finding his way. So to bring a Robin on, and the Robin from what we've seen, Dick Grayson. He's shown up in a couple of cameos, and he shows up in a cameo this week, 17. He showed up in 9, and I think like 12 or 13 or something. But he doesn't seem that much younger than Bruce Wayne, so I don't know. It seems a little wonky to me, but anyway, what'd you think of the week overall, Rocky?
I thought it was this was a little bit of a challenge choosing my top 5 because I was I had a top 3. Two that I snuck into the top 5, basically because I felt I had no other choice. But it was still the 3 that I liked. I really enjoyed, and it's a very interesting week. It's a little interesting week, maybe a little underwhelming, but interesting. And so it's and I just there's. Like even with the Batman, with how Scott Snyder's approach to Absolute Batman with Poison Ivy is interesting. He's really sticking to the horror element, I find, with all his characters, and it seems to work for him. I'm starting to have some reservations too, but at the same time, quick comment on Snyder is, the guy has hit it out of the park and he keeps doing it and doing it. So I feel almost foolish questioning Scott Snyder's instinct at this point. Look, the guy he's hit a home run almost every issue, like literally almost every issue, at least from a sales point of view. Obviously, opinions can vary, but you can't deny success. And there's just something about Absolute Batman, right? It's just it's a juggernaut that just keeps on smashing down barriers. And it's funny, I think for every the first issue hit a $400 milestone. I think I think the second and third printings are hitting 400,000 printings or something. Like, I don't know. That's an exaggeration, but it's just absolutely insane. Absolute Batman. It really is. It's a movement, and it's it's a good time.
Yeah, I prefer Scott's independent work as opposed to his DC work. I'm finding that more and more. Like, I look at my favorite things that he's done, things like By a Thread at Comixology, or Dark Spaces Dungeon, at IDW.
But you are in the minority. And by the way, I agree
Yeah,
with you because we reviewed a lot, most of his
yeah,
stuff. You and I reviewed, and we really quite enjoyed it. But it is he's incorporating elements of it. I think aspects of all those things, especially the horror, his horror indies. I think we're seeing elements of that in Absolute Batman, and it's nice to see. I think his independent efforts haven't gone to waste. I think they've really manifested and come full circle with Absolute Batman because that's what I see anyway. I see a lot of that horror element in all aspects of his Absolute Batman, and it seems to work for him.
yeah. I mean, I just sitting here thinking about it, I can go down the list: Canary, Clear, Barnstormers. Like,
Yeah.
even let's go back to Vertigo. It's DC. It's not. It's kind of independent, maybe not necessarily, but I like it with that Raphael Albuquerque. I love that stuff. Witches. Um,
Yeah.
just so
American
much.
Vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
American Vampire Vertigo, which is incredible. Um, he's got the book that he does with Charles Soule at Image.
Undiscovered country.
Yeah, Undiscovered Country, which is great. But yeah, then I look at, but again, like I don't put it all on Snyder. I put it on Batman as a character. Like I'm in the minority when it comes to Batman. Again, this is something a whole episode in and of itself. Like think about Batman as the Dark Knight, right? Like that name, and it's not Knight like Night. It's Knight like Knight. Um, and I feel like that in a way that name, that nickname, that it doesn't. I feel like it doesn't apply to the modern Batman in a lot of ways. Like think about what that it means, like a knight and a code of honor and a code of chivalry, and whatever. And it certainly doesn't apply to Absolute Batman, and that's fine. He's a different character. He's more brutal. He's a Batman for like the modern day, which again is perfectly fine to have that character. And it's one of the things I hear writers talk about Batman so much about why they love the character because he lends himself to so many different types of stories. But I feel like something's been lost. Like if we go back and look at the late 70s, early 80s Batman, there was a nobility to the character. And I think in a lot of ways, and I'm not pointing the finger at Frank Miller and saying, he started it, he did it, whatever, but so many creators cite The Dark Knight Returns as an inspiration, right? It influenced so many creators of the current generation that are writing books. And again, that was a Batman that because of circumstances, because of the time he was in, because of whatever you want to call it, the rise of fascism in Gotham City or whatever, that he could no longer afford those sort of codes that he lived by. That idea of a knight with a code of honor. Because the villains didn't have any honor, so he had to sort of escalate in terms of violence and what he was willing to do, and that's bled over, I think, into the modern Batman. So my contention is don't call Batman the Dark Knight anymore because he doesn't have that in a lot. Like Batman these days, I think is defined by his ability to be relentless and to never give up and to win no matter what the cost is. That's what defines Batman now, not this idea of a Dark Knight who has this code of honor or whatever. So anyway, like again,
Yeah.
a concept or an idea for a different day to dive more into it.
Yes,
But
for sure.
yeah, speaking of Batman, we're kicking it off with Batman Superman World's Finest number 48, Day for Night, Part 1. Mark Waid is the writer, Marcus Toe on artist, Tamara Bonville on color, Steve Wands on letters. We are, excuse me, we are diving right in the middle of the story, basically, because the last story arc that happened in World's Finest was about a Joker Luthor team up, literally, where they melded together. And we had the fusion character, which is an amalgamation of Batman and Superman that helped to defeat them. And now we have an Earth 3 story, which that means Crime Syndicate, that means Ultraman, that means Owlman. I'm a huge fan of the Crime Syndicate. Thought the Marcus Toe art was fantastic. We start off the issue with a little bit of a flashback to Owlman's origin, if you will, and I love this. But I will say that it's a little bit of a different version of the Crime Syndicate than we've seen before. But I sort of feel like it's almost the case every time the crime syndicate shows up. Like Rocky and
Yeah.
I were talking about it before we started recording. We had the crime syndicate that showed up in Forever Evil, which seemed almost the same as the classic one with a little difference, kind of modernized, if you will. I think Jeff Johns was involved in that Forever
Yeah.
Evil, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And then they kind of disappeared for a number of years. And then we had a 6-issue mini series from Andy Schmidt. He actually came on the show to talk about it. That seemed to be a little bit of a different version, like they were trying to switch things up. And now here we are a few years later. I think that was like 2021, 2022. Now here we are 40 years later, Crime Syndicate showing up again. And again, they're a little bit different. Now, I will say that Mark Waid, he recently wrote the new history of the DCU. He's the one that gets to say, what's canon and what's not. I don't know, fair or not. But I from my take, I'm saying, okay, I guess this is the current version of the Crime Syndicate, and it's fine. They feel a little more, much like I was just talking about with Batman. They feel a little more brutal. It almost feels like they're not quite. I wouldn't go so far as to say they're like absolute versions of the Crime Syndicate. Although, we want to talk about somebody that would be really brutal. The absolute version of Ultraman. I mean, Ultraman is already a sadistic character that's completely brutal. I can only imagine he put Bane to shame in a lot of ways. Absolute Bane, that is. But anyway, they do feel, I don't want to say modernized, but they do feel like Mark Waid has cranked up the violence level on these characters. Like, they have no compunction about killing or doing absolutely horrible things, torture, whatever. They don't care. Innocent, not innocent, enemy, not an enemy of theirs, somebody they're, completely unaware of, whatever, they'll just murder them. They don't care. So, yeah, this in the comic is not for the faint of heart, if you will. But the only thing is such a nitpick, but the only thing that bugged me to where, like, I always talk about things that pull me out of the issue. The first time that Ultraman appeared on the page, and maybe, again, because this is a different version than we've seen in the past, why is his emblem upside down? Did you notice that, Rocky? Like, that pulled me out of the story, like, right away.
His U? You mean his U on his S?
No, the U's not upside down, but the point, like in all the previous versions of Ultraman, and maybe Marcus Joe just made a mistake, but in all the previous versions of Ultraman, when you look at his logo,
Right.
the emblem on his chest, the point, the single point points down, just like Superman's does. But instead of having an S, he has a U, because he's not Superman, he's Ultraman. But here, the single point points up, and then the U. It just looks really weird. Like, I don't like it. I think it looks terrible.
That's. I guess symbolically, I suppose I can understand why Mark Waid would do that. Maybe just to emphasize the difference. I suppose.
Yeah. Again, possibly, but it just threw me. I was like, wait.
Yeah.
I just don't think it looks very good, because it doesn't. I mean, this is supposed to be, a sort of a distorted mirror image of Superman. So in my mind, that the shape of that icon should be the same. Obviously, again, you're going to have a U instead of an S. But yeah, it threw me. It pulled me right out. I went and looked at my Ultraman action figure. I'm like, why does that not look right? I'm like, oh yeah, it's upside down. So yeah, again, it's a nitpick. It didn't ruin my enjoyment of the story. This book is in my top 3. I really did enjoy it. But yeah, give us your thoughts on it, Rocky. I'm going to grab my Ultraman action figure so I can show everybody what I'm talking about.
Well, again, any one of us, any reader who loves the Crime Syndicate, you probably love a particular iteration of the team, and you don't even realize it, because they're all slightly different. Whether it's Jeff Johns' version, whether it's the original pre-Crisis version, whether it's Andy Schmidt's version. There's Grant Morrison did a version of the Crime Syndicate on his series. He did a graphic novel called Earth 2 back in the day. Grant Morrison's is still my favorite, but in any event, this is pretty good. Mark Waid has a lot of fun here. You got an evil as F Owlman, who as a young Thomas, I guess as a young Thomas Wayne, basically orchestrates pays somebody to murder his parents and his brother, and of course, grows up to be completely corrupted and literally murder all of his rogues gallery. There's a scene with him literally killing the Edward Nygma version on Earth 3, the crime syndicate. Ultraman is feared by the people of Metropolis. You know, most parents and their children hide whenever they see Superman. Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Ultraman. You better hope he doesn't see you. It's terrifying. And Mark Waid does a good job scripting the terror and what the citizens of Earth 3 must go through. And call out to the Marcus Tau, the artist. I thought did a really good job. Tamara Bonvillain on the colors, excellent. I loved it. I love even the evil version, the Earth 3 versions of the Doom Patrol. While the Doom Patrol themselves are essentially corrupted, they're not as bad and still not as ruthless as Superman and as Ultraman and Owlman. And basically, the central gist of the story is that a secret weapon has been found. A secret weapon has been found, and of course, this is just when Owlman and Ultraman have been thinking about expanding. You know, they want to expand outside of Gotham, outside of. They want to expand their operations outside of Gotham City and Metropolis, and of course,
they're talking about. Sorry to interrupt, Rocky. They're talking about forming the syndicate. So this is really, in a way, the origin of the crime syndicate.
Yeah, and which makes complete sense because remember what Mark Waid's been doing essentially through the entire run of World's Finest. He's telling stories in the past. And that applies to the crime syndicate too. So what I love about this is that whatever he's going to establish as a crime syndicate story, we can have current versions of modern day tales of the crime syndicate based upon these origin tales that Mark Waid's telling in World's Finest. So it really is it's really a very good way of doing it and a way of establishing new rules for the crime syndicate right up front. And I just like what he does here. I mean, the ruthlessness upon which the Ultraman and Owlman take care of the Doom Patrol. The the horrible thing they do to Miles Calder, with the chief of the Doom Patrol, putting his head on the robot's body, melting the robot man's brain. It's just horrific. Also, we see Lois Lane here. Lois Lane, interestingly enough, in this particular iteration, Lois Lane is Superwoman, and she appears to be married to Ultraman, which is different because I sort of liked in past iterations there was always that triangle. You know, she was sleeping with Ultraman, but teasing and also sleeping with Owlman. She was sort of like I preferred that where there was a little bit more sexual promiscuity and innuendo and sometimes right in your face. But in any event, very well done. And to have the reveal at this issue, Mark Waid really outdone himself here. I thought this was a fantastic ending. Absolutely fantastic. I didn't see it coming. They finally discovered these secret weapons that they want to use to, maybe move toward expanding their operations. And the secret weapon that they find, spoiler alert, appears to be Superman and Batman from our Earth, or from the mainstream DC universe, having been captured by, I guess, the Metal Men, and so where this is going to go, I have no idea. But the next issue promises to be Escape from Earth 3. I love that this entire issue is told from the perspective of Ultraman and Owlman, and this is the way to pull me into these types of stories because I love the crime syndicate. I wish, I got very, very opinionated when we had War for Earth 3 and what have you, of all the things they should have done differently or this or that. I love Andy Schmidt's version as well. They had some enjoyable moments. There's just so much potential with the crime syndicate. I hope that we see more of it in the DC universe. I think Forever Evil is one of the better DC events that they had over the last 20 years, in my opinion. And just to have a crime syndicate done right, because I think that they're so powerful, and they're more powerful, and they ought to be given more credit, and they ought to be elevated. Just like Darkseid went through a period of time where he was underutilized, or he was almost depowered. He wasn't as dark as he ought to have been. Darkseid's back with a vengeance, and I would really love to see the Crime Syndicate come back with a vengeance as well. So, but yeah, no, I quite enjoy this.
Yeah, when I say it started kind of in the middle, that's what I meant. Though we didn't see how Superman and Batman were captured, I'm sure we'll see a flashback. Biggest difference I can think of: Crime Syndicate Forever Evil version, Donna Troy as Superwoman instead of
Right,
Lois Lane.
right.
Vastly prefer Lois Lane as the version of Superwoman. Don't know what I mean. Donna Troy, I think, is just not an iconic enough character. With all due respect. There's just been too many different changes to her. She's never really stuck. She's kind of like Power Girl in that way, where
Yeah.
people just don't really know who she is. So I'm glad it's the Lois Lane version here. Here's and actually all these I have the whole set. You can see it there. How it's
Right on.
more more like that. So this set I've got them all. There's 6 of them. You can see them on the back here. This came out at the same time as Forever Evil. That's when they released these action figures. So I've got them all. Johnny Quick, Owlman, Superwoman, Ultraman. What is his name? Death. Trying to think of the Firestorm guy. Deathstorm. It's on here. So, Atomica comes as Johnny Quick. Deathstorm, and then Power Ring, which is the Green Lantern version. So, yeah. I'm excited to see where this goes as well. Again, glad it's Lois Lane and not Donna Troy. So anyway, moving on. Up next, we have Catwoman number 84. This is not in my top 5. Comes in at number 7 for me. Written by Torunn Grunbeck, Patricio Del Pesce on art and color. Steve Wands handles the letters. I've been wanting Catwoman to be back in Gotham City. She finally is back in Gotham City. But that being said, this issue is all set up. She does get back there. She visits her mother's grave. Falcone is there, knows that or suspects rather, that she stole, the pearl that he was trying to auction off in Europe that we saw, that storyline play out over the last few issues. So he thinks he's going to be able to use that knowledge to blackmail her. Selina kind of wonders aloud why she isn't dead. And it's because Falcone says it's because he can use a Catwoman, basically. The whole idea of her being his daughter, and he's like, I have any use for any more kids. I mean, he just killed one of his sons last issue. So interesting to see what's going to happen next. But again, this is all set up. Like, I've been wanting to see Catwoman back in Gotham City, and even though she's back, she's not really back yet because we don't really get to see her in that element, so to speak. Because again, it's just a lot of setup. So it's a fine issue. I'm really looking forward to the next issue, the next story arc, to see what Torunn Grunbeck's going to do now that Catwoman's back in Gotham City. Will the story be a little easier to follow? Because it has been a bit convoluted at times. So anything to add, Rocky?
Yeah, this was one of the better issues. I have issues with the pacing and the way the story has been told. Even this issue, a lot of this issue had like a backstory with Selina and Holly, and I'm not really sure what the point of it was. I'm not really sure how it was necessary. There's so much background. There's so many times with Torunn Grunbeck where there's flashbacks, and I'm never clear how they really serve the narrative. And I'm not, again, the only relevant portion of this entire issue was the end, when she has a conversation with, Falcone. That was the most interesting. I'm not really sure what the rest of it was really necessary. This isn't really connecting for me, and it's just unfortunate. And I've said it before too. I think that the artistic style and the flashbacks and the coloring, none of it works for me. And it's unfortunate, because I really do think with a different art and maybe a different artist, this thing would maybe hit with me better. But it consistently is never in my top 5, because I just can't. It's never elevated to that point. But who knows? Maybe with Catwoman finally being back in Gotham City, we'll get some more. That'll change.
Yeah, I mean, Patricio Del Pesce is more known for his color work than as an artist, but he's been getting more and more work as an artist. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like you said, you're not really sure the point of the Holly Robinson backstory, as it were. I mean, here's a character that first showed up in year one. You know, Batman 404 is her first appearance. She filled in as a Catwoman at times. So she, you know, she's an iconic character in a lot of ways. But um, you know, she was Selena Kyle's roommate when she first showed up in 404. You know, also a teenage prostitute. So she has a lot in common with Catwoman, but I feel like she's never really been utilized well, and I think that's why people don't. She's not memorable, and even here, and hopefully this changes, and Torunn Grunbeck's going to do something meaningful with her. But so far, Grunbeck is falling into the same trap that just about every other writer has fallen into when they're writing Holly Robinson, and that's just using her as a plot device. You know, this whole idea of women in refrigerators, right? Like putting a female in danger to motivate a male character to get, you know, go and do something.
Mm.
Just because the protagonist here is a female, is Catwoman, that's still not okay. It still, you know, lessens the character, and it seems like that's the same path that Torunn Grunbeck is following here. Put Holly in danger so Selena can, you know, come to the rescue or whatever. Again, this is a character, Holly Robinson, who was Catwoman herself at one point, so she should be, you know, a little more capable of taking care of herself.
Well, this was a flashback, though. I think most of the Holly scenes, in fairness, were flashbacks to.
No. I'm not saying when Holly's a young teenager. I'm saying that, you know, in the modern time when, you know, she goes back to Gotham, or she goes back to Holly's residence, and Holly's missing, and that's what leads her back to Gotham. Holly basically says, "Come to Gotham, come home."
Yeah.
The you know, what's being implied there is, "Come save me." That's how I took it anyway. So again, like,
fair enough.
It'd be nice if Holly, kind of like I was saying with Pete Ross and obviously Pete Ross has been around decades longer than Holly Robinson and kind of deserves, you know, a little more than Holly Robinson does, but kind of in that similar vein. Like when a character's been around as long, I mean, you think about it, year one, that was what, 1989, 87 that it came out.
Yeah.
I mean,
long time ago.
That's like almost 40 years.
It is. Yeah.
Holly Robinson's been around. I know, making me feel old. So, whatever. Maybe people don't care about Holly Robinson, don't think she deserves to have her own agency. That's fair, if that's what you think. So, anyway, up next, Superman Unlimited. This comes in at number 3 for me. It's Die Laughing Part 2. I do want to say that in another stronger week, this probably wouldn't have even made my top 5. I thought it was okay. Written by Dan Slott, art by Mike Norton, colors by Marcelo Maiello, letters by Dave Sharp. I do enjoy the dynamic between the old school prankster and his nephew, who's much more brutal and much more powerful. Actually has superpowers to be able to disguise himself. I like the sort of Silver Age feel it has with Clark Kent and Superman, you know, sort of working against each other and you know, referring to each other and acting like they're two separate people to kind of put everybody off the scent, as it were, because Clark Kent has the contract out on him, as opposed to Superman, who doesn't. And there's even one point where this new trickster is holding Clark Kent hostage, you know, trying to lure Superman in. So again, very Silver Age feel. I will say that the whole idea, and I do like the idea of Superman having invulnerability to kryptonite, even though it only lasts for 90 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever. Superman can do a lot with his super speed in that short period of time, as we see in this issue. But on the other hand, just to play devil's advocate, it does function as a deus ex machina at times for Dan Slott. If he writes himself into a corner, he can just go, "Oh, Superman's going to use his 2 minutes of you know, heightened abilities to do whatever he wants." Because I, you know, when Slott first talked about bringing kryptonite to Earth in more abundance, that raised the stakes for Superman. But then he gave him this out that he seems to use like once every issue to sort of get out of whatever danger there is. So it's like, why did you bother to create the, you know, the situation where there was more kryptonite? And if you recall, Rocky, we had that instance where it was like the Creeper, Jack Ryder, whoever it was, that kind of put it out there on social media that, hey, when after he turns to gold, whatever, then for a few minutes after, apparently he doesn't have powers.
Yeah.
Whatever came with that, like it
Yeah.
showed up, and then like nothing's happened with any of that. So anyway, there's a Silver Age feel here. I did enjoy that, but there are some sort of inherent things about Superman Unlimited that are not clicking for me as well as they could. And with that being said, I actually dropped this from my pull list after issue 10. Um, we'll see if I add it back on it at some point. But yeah, it just hasn't been quite there for me over these last few issues. But I will say, in fairness to DC and Dan Slott, they do want this to be continuity light and very new reader friendly, and it continues to be that. But probably this issue and the previous issue are going to be most notable for being the first appearances of this new prankster, who seems to be a lot more formidable. Talking about Batman being leveled up and the crime syndicate being leveled up.
Yeah.
Now we have a leveled up prankster in a lot of ways. So what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I want to give Dan Slott as much credit as I give Mark Waid. As in many ways, just to talk about Mark Waid for a quick moment again, Mark Waid is world's finest. Nobody really talks about a world's finest, but it's the good old chestnut. You can rely on world's finest. It's just consistently always good. At a minimum, World's Finest is just good. It's good writing. Even though it's not necessarily the best every week, it's just a consistent good seller, and it's just entertaining. And I'm finding Superman Unlimited with Dan Slott the same way. He really is. I mean, he knows the assignment, and I didn't realize, Jace, what you said. But it makes sense. I didn't realize that Dan Slott was told that by DC, because this is continuity light, and they're good. They're almost one shot, two shot, 2-issue stories, and they're entertaining and they're good. I will say though that, because of the concept of kryptonite being everywhere is kind of a cool concept, there's a part of me that wishes that they would let Dan Slott a little bit loose, let him loose, because I know this is a guy that wrote Superior Spider-Man. I mean, this is a guy who's wrote some pretty, well-known Spider-Man storylines, and say what you will, because I know every Marvel zombie has an opinion on Dan Slott, pro and con. The reality is that Dan Slott wrote my favorite version of Spider-Man, and I would love him to go full Dan Slott on Superman for maybe 12 issues, and maybe allow him to go a little bit continuity heavy if he so chose. But I don't think he wants to. I'm getting the impression that maybe it's not just because he was told to go continuity light. I'm just enjoying this story. He seems to be having a lot of fun here, and it shows in the tale. And this was a lot of fun. And I also want to give a shout out to the covers. I really love the covers. I just love cover A. These Silver Age like covers, they're just nice. And in this day and age, and a little bit of a rant again, every now and then I have a rant on the covers, where we're always getting posed covers and variant covers where everyone's striking a pose. It's nice to have cover A's that are just, really reflective of the content and just cool looking, and it just, keeps bringing me back. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I think that cover A is a perfect example of that. Really, really cool looking cover. So, all right. Up next, we have Nightwing, number 135, written by Dan Waters, Dexter Soy on art, Veronica Gandini on colors, Wes Abbott handles the letters. Cirque du Sin, part 6, finale. Finally, we get the end of the Cirque du Sin storyline. I enjoyed this issue. I enjoyed the resolution of the Nightwing Prime storyline. Dexter Soy's art was solid. Dan Waters, rather, talking about when he first got on this title, he's known for stuff that's a little more weird, a little more horror centric, or what have you. And what was he going to bring to a more traditional superhero book? And he did a good job of mixing it together. I mean, when you think about who Zanny is, the leader of the Cirque du Sin, he sort of as a character perfectly encapsulates Dan Waters mixing his predilection to doing horror and kind of weird stories with superhero stuff. The fact that Zanny is, that monster or that being that, steals children out, in the middle of the night from under the bed, or from the, spooky monster in the closet, or what have you. But his actual origins are in the fifth dimension. He's a fifth dimensional imp, just like Mxyzptlk, but obviously with much more of a horror bent. Again, that's the perfect sort of mixture, perfect amalgamation of the two sides of Dan Waters, if you will. So I enjoyed this. It did just miss my top five, came in at number 6 for me. I'm really excited to see what Dan Waters is going to do next. And kind of on that note, I already looked at the next issue of Nightwing because I happened to see that it was in our press folder. Um, and I was kind of wondering, based on the last page of this issue, it seemed like we're going to lean into the corruption in Bloodhaven, maybe a bit of a crime story, if you will. But then what we have in the next issue leaned into the supernatural as well. Not to get too spoilery. So that was interesting. So I'm very curious to see what comes next for Nightwing. But I did enjoy the finale of the story. So it was in your top 5 though, so you liked it even better than I did.
Yeah, I actually thought I love this issue. I thought it was this easily made my top 5, and simply because I think the ending is so poetic. I've enjoyed Dan Waters' run here on Nightwing more so than I enjoyed Tom Taylor's run, and it has had some. Occasionally it's had some pacing issues here and there, but I actually like the fact that yes, he's made Bloodhaven darker, but he's done so by incorporating like the fifth dimension, and that is kind of a wonky thing to do, but he manages to do it in a way that he really is. I never really appreciated it until these last few issues, but especially this one. That the Circuit de Sin really is. It's about nightmares, and it's terrorizing children, and it isn't so much it's not so much making Bloodhaven darker. It's literally terrorizing the minds of our children, and as parents, we want to protect our young, and of course, children in Bloodhaven love Nightwing. If it's one thing that Tom Taylor established in his run, is that the people of Bloodhaven they not only love Dick Grayson, they don't know he's Nightwing, but to the extent that they do or thought he is, they love Nightwing. And I love the ending here that, here is Nightwing Prime, who's the embodiment of the fifth dimension. The fact that he wakes up, and even though, in a very real painful way, Nightwing, Dick Grayson, does not defeat the Zanny. You can only keep him at bay in the fifth dimension, basically cage him in the fifth dimension, but he can still reach children's dreams from the fifth dimension. So that's not really a victory. But it's because of the sacrifice of Nightwing Prime, who is capable, because he's still a child himself. Nightwing Prime is still a child in an adult body. He can sense where the Zanny is, and he sacrifices himself by staying in the fifth dimension, so that the children themselves in our dimension, when they have a bad dream, yes, you're going to have a bad dream and the Zanny might show up, but you're also going to have a superhero that shows up always to let you know that everything's going to be okay. And I just thought that was a beautiful, beautiful way to end it. And it just worked for me. And it sort of tugged at my heartstrings, and I really liked it. And I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that they don't know, the citizens of Bloodhaven don't know that Dick Grayson and Nightwing are one and the same. And it got me thinking, because we mentioned Forever Evil before.
That's right.
And that was when his
identity was revealed.
Identity was. But the walk back on that, in case you're not aware, everybody, you weren't reading when Forever Evil came out, that was back in 2014, 2013. Forever Evil started. Yeah. So basically, Batman had this backup thing where he used technology to make it, which it would make even more sense now. So I guess in a lot of ways, Jeff Johns, who wrote that, was prescient, although it was rolled back later. I don't know how much Jeff Johns was involved with the rollback, but basically, Batman made it look like it was a deep fake, that the footage was faked, and Dick Grayson revealed as Nightwing wasn't really what happened. So yeah, but that's how we ended up with the Grayson miniseries. Dick Grayson couldn't be Nightwing because Dick Grayson supposedly was killed. That was co-written by Tom King and Tom Seeley, or Tim Seeley rather. That was Tom's Tom King's first comic book work. So
Yeah.
it's a fantastic series. You guys should go and read it, but it's so different than what Tom King stuff's like now. And one of the things we always say about Tom King is he doesn't work well with others. So
Yeah.
it's endlessly humorous to me that his very first work was he had a co-writer with Tim Seeley. So
Yeah.
anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have the final issue for John Layman on Titans. um, Layman is the writer, Pete Woods on art and colors, Wes Abbott handles the letters. Um, I want to say that this is in a way like the final issue, even though the next issue is just Titans 33. And I do appreciate that DC's not renumbering because we're getting a new creative team. Tate Bromball is handling the writing duties on the next issue of Titans, and we've seen that cover teased. Although much like DC's been doing, I appreciate they're doing this when they're releasing these cover images. They're redacting, but Rocky and I speculated on who it would be. It certainly looks like John Kent Superboy. It looks like Yara Flor. It looks like Tara. It looks like Batgirl. Sami Basri's doing the art. So, again, exciting, and it seems like a younger team. I'm a little surprised. Like I said, I'm glad they're not, but I'm a little surprised that they didn't restart with another number one because, all those characters I mentioned, they're much younger than the traditional Titans. So you almost think returning to a teen Titans era, older than the last Teen Titans version, which was the version that we had with what's Lobo's daughter's name, like Crush,
Crush.
and
Yeah.
led by Damian Wayne, and those were like young, like 13, and these characters are more like 19. But it's gonna be interesting to see what the new era holds. So all that being said, I'm sort of sad that the John Layman era is coming to an end because I really enjoyed the John Layman era, and I much more so than the Tom Taylor era that came before this, and I
Yeah.
wanted it to last longer because the other part of it is Layman, like half of his run was interrupted by DCKO.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see what he was going to do. But like you look at the stories he did tell with Deathstroke coming back, with Tara coming back, um, Vanadia as a character,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
those were all interesting
Yeah.
concepts.
Yeah. He
And I
had
would
good
have,
character work. He did
yeah,
character work on that.
yeah,
Yeah.
great interactions, what have you. So I'm really sad to see his era come to an end. And I thought the Pete Woods did a fantastic job on the art. So I really love this. This specific issue was as much as Layman could, because it is still a DCKO tie-in, but maybe the most unnecessary. Like if you're just reading DCKO and you don't pick up Titans necessarily, you don't have to pick this up. You're not missing out on anything KO related. You should pick this up on its own merits because it's fantastic. You should pick up Layman's entire run on Titans because it's fantastic. But as much as Layman could give us kind of a period on the end of the sentence or wrap up his run with a bow, he does a fantastic job with the character work in this particular issue, showing us why the Titans matter, showing us how much they care about each other, showing us how much they are a family. They're much more so a family than the Justice League has ever been. And, not to say that the Justice League, don't care about each other, but when you look at the Justice League, even going back to the classic Justice League, like Satellite era, where you'd have certain characters that were really close, like friendship wise, like Hal Jordan and Barry Allen, or Superman and Batman, Bruce and Clark back then, pre-crisis. Um, but overall, you wouldn't see. You never saw never felt like Bruce and Hal were that close, and you could see that play out in New 52, where Jeff Johns made them sort of antagonistic from the first time they met. You have none of that with the Titans. Everybody is close with everybody. It feels much more like a family, like these are siblings. And I thought Layman captured that in this issue really, really well.
Yeah.
And I love John Layman. I think he's super talented. I think he's underrated. I don't think he gets enough work. So I don't say that to say that he's like I'm putting him on the same level as legendary creators like Marv Wolfman and George Perez or what have you. But what I will say is part of the reason that era of Titans that so many people talk about and mention as seminal work, the Perez Wolfman Titans. The reason that it worked so well was because of the relationship dynamics between all of the characters. And that is one thing that Layman really does well. There's character dynamics between all of the characters. He doesn't lose sight of that. And you can't say that about all eras of Titans. And part of it is because it's constantly a rotating roster in a lot of ways, much like the Justice League is a lot of times. But that is one of the advantages that Layman had here. He had the classic roster, and he did a fantastic job with it. So I'm sad to see him leave really sad to see him leave the title. But yeah, we'll see what the next era holds. What are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
I thought he had a sort of a bittersweet task. He had to wrap up his storyline and say goodbye while also providing a transition to a new iteration of the team. And he does it masterfully. He does a really great job. This is a little bit of a callback to Jeremy Adams. He did that DCKO tie-in, The Kids Are Going to Be All Right. Those led by Connor Kent, of course, they show up here to help defeat Grail. And while Tara herself, it looks like Tara does in fact choose to help the Titans out. And now where the Teen Titans, where the Titans go after this, i.e. Donna Troy, Nightwing, Tara, et cetera, Cyborg, what's going to happen to them? We're not really sure because we're going to be getting a new Titans team. But you said something very accurate there, that really the Titans really are probably the most close-knit team. It's funny, at the end of this, I don't see their team disbanding. This didn't feel like a disbanding to me at the end of this issue. So if next issue we're suddenly going to get a new team, that's all well and good. I'm looking forward to the new team, don't get me wrong. But I would have had no problem with John Layman, quit editorially interfering with his stories. Let him tell the stories he wants to tell. I would have, because like you, I also thought his Titans run was better than Tom Taylor's approach to the characters. But regardless, it's a wonderful problem to have, because Titans, I think this property is still in good hands, because moving forward, and I'm looking forward to it. And personally, if for no other reason, I definitely got this issue because I've been enjoying all the DCKO tie-ins. I've got all of them. I'm missing. I missed two, but I got the second printings on them for DCKO tie-ins. But I wish we'd have got more of the battle between Grail, because I love Grail. I wish she would have lasted a little bit longer. And some of the battle sequences, but Connor Kent showing up and they all managed to take out Grail. That was pretty cool. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the battle, but it was still pretty good to see Grail get her ass kicked. But yeah. But anyways, yeah, it didn't make my top 5, only because, to be quite honest, it was, maybe it's a little bit of a protest because it's ending, and it felt like they had to go to a particular point, and it simply had too much competition. But it was very well done.
Yeah, that's fair, 100%. All right, next book makes my top 3. We have the second new property for DC's revived Vertigo imprint. It's End of Life #1 from writer Kyle Starks. Steve Pughe is on art. Chris O'Halloran on colors. Becca Carey handles the letters and additional design. I thought this was so much fun. I had forgotten, at New York Comic Con, I attended the panel where they were talking about these titles that were coming up, but I had forgotten, honestly, what this one was about. But then when I read it, I was sucked in. I thought it was great. If anybody read the same creative team, they had that Peacemaker series a couple of years ago, Peacemaker Tries Hard, which was the James Gunn version of Peacemaker. So if you love the Peacemaker TV show, you're very much going to love that. So I'll say it again, like if you love the Peacemaker TV show, if you love that Peacemaker Try Hard series, this is a must buy for you. Because here we have a hitman who is so full of himself that he sort of there's an arrogance to him. And his name is Eddie Stallion. And
that can't be his real name.
Yeah, the Stallion portion. The Stallion portion comes from the fact that, and we get a little bit of flashback to when he joins this sort of secret cabal, and they all have sort of animal nicknames, and so that's where Stallion comes from. But we get a little bit of a flashback, and there's story reasons why we learn a little bit about his upbringing and sort of why he is the way that he is. But again, there's an arrogance to him, and so he gets hired to do this job. Um, uh, where they're going and robbing this place, and he doesn't ask enough questions because, again, the arrogance of this guy, and frankly the kind of obliviousness of the way he sort of floats through life, and he's so narcissistic and self-centered. And it's not until after the job is like 90% complete of going in, killing this guy's security and robbing him, that he realizes that the guy that the job that he's taken, he's robbing one of sort of the high level people in the organization that he's part of. And once he realizes that, he kills a couple of the guys that hired him for the job, and he tries to flee. And then, of course, the organization knows that it's him, and now they've put a hit out on him, and he's got to basically disappear because while his handler tries to extricate himself because he's basically put himself in a horrible position. He's broke kind of the one rule that you're not supposed to break when you're part of this organization. He's acted against the organization's own best interests. And so the biggest thing that comes across from this, and if you've ever met Kyle Starks or you're familiar with his work, you're going to really enjoy this because it has that same irreverence that Kyle puts in a lot of his work, the same humor, the same sort of sexual innuendo. Gorgeous artwork from Steve Pughe. Like, I thought Steve Pughe did a pretty good job in the Peacemaker Tries Hard series. I didn't think Steve Pugh's art was necessarily that great in the that Red Tornado series with a bunch of the heroes that were Power Girls in it. You remember what it was called? I can't remember.
Oh yeah, one Star Squadron.
Yeah, One Star Squadron. It was written by Mark Russell, and it was very satirical, and it was almost like it was sort of a depressing story, which, again, it's satire. That's sometimes that's the case. But I don't know. Maybe there wasn't enough action for Steve to really stretch his muscles. So I didn't think it was his best work. But yeah, he definitely, I felt in my mind, leveled up on Peacemaker, Tries Hard, and now he's leveled up multifold when we talk about this particular series, because I thought the art was amazing. It was so good. It was just fantastic. I think if I put this side by side with the One Star Squadron, I wouldn't even necessarily think it was the same artist. The art here is so detailed, and part of it's the colors as well. Colors are more vibrant here, but yeah, Eddie Stallion, he's a character that he's a little bit unlikable, but at the same time, he's compelling. Like, I want to see what happens to him next because he's done this to himself. So in a way, you want to see him get his comeuppance, but in a way, the people that he's going up against are even worse than him. So you kind of root for him in a way. So he's a really interesting character, and I really applaud Kyle Starks for the complexity of this character, Eddie Stallion, that we get in the first issue, where he's engendering these sort of conflicting emotions. And again, great job by Steve Pughe, because not only the detail in the art and the strength of the storytelling, but bringing that same level of complexity to the body language and the character acting for Eddie Stallion, like right from the beginning, just the way he carries himself. There's an arrogance to him. When he goes on the run, he gets dropped off like in the middle of nowhere. Like literally, like the bus drops him off, and like the town is still miles away, and he complains to the bus driver. He's like, you can't drop me here. The town's like 5 miles that way. And the bus driver's like, hey, I don't control where the ticket goes. I just make the stops. And he like drives off, and like even those scenes, like the way Eddie Stallion is holding himself, like the way he stands and the way he's walking to town or whatever. That body language by Kyle Starks gives you everything you need to know about who this guy is and what he's feeling in that moment or whatever. So again, brilliant job. High recommend to pick this up this week. I was blown away. I think I had ordered the regular cover first issue from like my DCBS order, and then after I read this last weekend, I went to where I can order Comic Hub through my LCS, and I picked up a couple other covers. There's a Dave Johnson cover that's really cool. And then there's also a Rafa Sandoval negative space cover because Eddie Stallion wears like a red suit, and there's a cover where he's that red suit blends into like negative space, whatever. Yeah, there it is,
Yeah.
right there. I was like, oh, I got to get that cover. So I'm getting 3 copies of issue 1. So yeah, I mean, again, like think back if you could get some of those first issues of like those early Vertigo titles, and not all of them have held their value. Sandman has dropped in value for reasons that I won't get into. Preacher, peaked and it's come back down some, after the television show or whatever. But again, these are first issues of Vertigo titles. Some of these may, go a while, and they may end up in other properties like other Vertigo stories have in the past. So yeah, I mean, it'll never probably be less expensive to pick these up, like with Bleeding Hearts last week and End of Life this week, than it is going to be, picking it up at your local comic shop this week. So I do recommend it. What were your thoughts on it, Rocky?
I thought it was hilarious. So it was. It very much reminded me of Peacemaker, and I thought, give Kyle Starks. We even said when we reviewed Peacemaker, give him something more mainstream in DC, and well, okay, they gave him Vertigo, and it's great, and this, I'm not going to say this feels exactly like Peacemaker. It doesn't. He's made it his own. This character is his own, but it does have some of those similar vibes, but in all the best ways possible. And I also got to give a shout out. One of the main characters is a Richard Smiley, who's a sort of a psychotic comic book artist creator. They actually have his cartoon, his comic strip in the very back of the comic. So there's a lot of like little Easter eggs and hidden gems if you read right to the end. So it's very well done. It's funny. It's just plain funny. It's entertaining and it's funny, and that's what you want for an opening issue. It basically pulls you in. He's not a particularly bright guy, I don't think. He's very much a guy. He's just very, very good at killing, but he's sort of a killing machine, and he's the guy that's being sent from assignment to assignment. Unfortunately, because he doesn't double check things. He kind of does what he's told, or he's easy to lead, but he's not too good. He's not too quick on the uptake, and unfortunately, I think that's come back to haunt him here. And how he's going to get out of this, of course, who knows? It seems like hijinks galore are going to ensue. This is called End of Life for a reason. I'm assuming the end of life, of course, refers to the fact that he's probably pretty much approaching his end of life, given the situation that he finds himself in. But no, this is poetic justice to see Kyle Starks and Steve Pughe, the same creative team that did. Well, in fact, I think it was Chris O'Halloran. I think he was also the letterer on the Peacemaker series as well. So, so it's the
Right.
same creative team. So yeah. This made my top. This made my top 3. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, same. All right, next book did not make my top 5. It came in at number 8 for me. The Village Part 2. It's Wonder Woman number 30. Stephanie Williams is the writer. Jeff Spokes on art. Clayton Cowles handling the letters. Spokes colors himself here. As I was reading this, I sort of felt like, so all those Wonder Woman issues that I've read over the past decade that just didn't feel memorable and didn't feel like they really knew what to do with the character or what have you. That's what this reminded me of.
Yeah.
Leaning into the idea of, the aspect of her god, her relationship with the gods or whatever, which I've talked about before. That's my least interesting aspect of the character, the thing I'm least interested in reading about her. Now, this does have foreshadowing for the Wonder War, which starts next issue, which is sort of a flash forward. Tom King has described it as sort of a Days of Future Past for Wonder Woman. Days of Future Past being a very famous storyline in the X-Men back in the day. So it's not necessarily the future that's going to come to pass, but it's certainly been hinted at. So we're going to be jumping forward in history of the future of Wonder Woman. But yeah, I just didn't enjoy it. Like it's not memorable. The whole idea of what Discord was doing with the self-doubt or whatever, it's like it's been done before. It just didn't feel like anything new or fresh or exciting. Stephanie Williams wrote this 2-issue arc to give Tom King and Daniel Sampere a little extra time to to get ahead on Wonder War, so hopefully we don't have any delays. So these 2 issues have literally been a fill-in. You could look at it that way. and this issue felt like that's exactly what it felt like. This felt like feeling like back in the day. A lot of you might not be aware because now they'll just make books late. But back in the day, they couldn't do that when it was newsstand distribution. You had a contract with the company that distributed magazines to newsstands, and you if you said you were going to have a book out, in a particular month, you had to have a book out. So what comic publishers used to do, they used to have these inventory stories where it was just a story about a character, whether it be, Iron Man or Batman or whomever, that didn't necessarily tie into the current storyline that was going on, because also back then people didn't write for the trade. It wasn't 4 or 5, 6 issue arcs or whatever. So sometimes there were plot lines that went on for more than one issue. So a lot of times it was one and done. And even at times these inventory stories would interrupt other story arcs that were going on, but there'd be like a 1 or 2 page setup maybe that they would do that they could do within that month and say, okay, the regular story is not going to be done in time. We'll use one of these inventory stories. All we have to do is get somebody to draw this 1 page to explain why we're inserting this flashback of something that happened to Batman years ago or whatever. And they were filling issues basically so that things could stay on schedule. That's what these 2 issues have felt like. And this issue, the second part, even more so than the first. So yeah, I could have done without this. It didn't, I won't remember it in a few months' time. I didn't really think there was anything to it. I didn't think the art was particularly good. It's just, forgettable for me. So what were your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Well, I will say I love Jeff Spoke's art. I do think this is Stephanie Williams. I mean, she was given an assignment to create a filler story, and this is what it is. But I just want to I want to do a little bit of a rant here, and this isn't against Stephanie Williams. This is against all mainstream Wonder Woman writers, and this is this is an indirect huge compliment to Kelly Thompson. Why is Absolute Wonder Woman doing so well? She's managed. I've convinced myself I don't like mythological tales because I've never gotten a good one in the pages of Wonder Woman. Not really. And then all of a sudden, Absolute Wonder Woman comes along, and Kelly Thompson keeps writing. Kelly Thompson has managed to write an Absolute Wonder Woman one-shot story, one-issue stories of mythology that are incredible, that are beautiful, that are poetic, that have something to say. And we can't seem to get that in mainstream Wonder Woman. We haven't got it in 30 issues of Tom King's Wonder Woman. And of course, and even in the filler here, where we have Discord coming to Paradise Island, it's very by the numbers. It's like, Strife is coming to the island to cast doubt, and drama ensues. Mind control. At the end, they defeat her. Strife leaves, and then Strife at the end hints at a Wonder War to come. Very, very by the numbers, very, very generic, absolutely beautifully drawn. But unfortunately, just like in my view, the ongoing problem with Tom King and Daniel Sampere is a fantastic artist, but not quite enough of substance in the story for my liking. Now, I am looking forward to, I shouldn't say I have my doubts about Wonder War, but I want it to be really good. We've got these breaks before with Tom King. We've got these breaks before and then we've come back and we got the exciting adventures of Mouseman. And but then there were moments in Mouseman that were kind of cool, I thought. So there was hit and miss for me. But in any event, I really, really hope that future writers are taking a look at how to write a good, Kelly Thompson understands something about writing a Wonder Woman, and I think it's 2 things. Number 1, I have a point to a story. Remember, mythology always has a morale or of some kind and a lesson. And number 2, remember that you're writing a Wonder Woman story. Wonder Woman is the focus. Wonder Woman's choices are where the focus has to lie, not with all her Amazon sisters and, you're trying to make everyone happy and not offend this group or that group. Just focus on the story. And anyways, my little mini rant is over, but I didn't mind this. I thought this was a nice break. And it came right into my top 5, came right in at number 5, frankly, just because this happened to be that week. And I wanted to give Stephanie Williams, to her credit, she brought back the Apples of Discord, which she brought in during some of her storyline. And I think it was nice to see her sort of like come full circle with incorporating some of her past story elements into this, and I appreciate her doing that. And I thought she did a really good job.
Fair enough. All right, last book we're going to talk about in detail: Absolute Batman number 17, first appearance of the Absolute Poison Ivy, written by Scott Snyder. It's titled The Seventh Kingdom, Part 1. Guest artist Eric Canetti. Frank Martin on colors, Clayton Cowell on letters. I usually like Eric Canetti art. I didn't enjoy it as much this issue. It didn't just seem as clean as his art style usually is, and that's the style I prefer. I thought this was okay. It comes in right at number 5 for me, just making my top 5 for a lot of the reasons I was talking about before. So I won't get into them with why. Trying to figure out why I'm not enjoying Absolute Batman as much as most people are. I sort of feel like in a way, I feel like the Rogues Gallery are being introduced too soon. And we're just traveling so fast that there's no time to really let the story breathe in a way. But maybe that's the point, right? Like Snyder has said, hey, Absolute Batman always forward, Batman AF always advancing, always forward. And so, maybe that's what it's supposed to be. Maybe it's supposed to feel chaotic and like he doesn't have a chance to catch his breath because, it's just one thing after another after another. But it is starting to feel a little one note. Like we keep getting these rogues, Batman rogues villains show up, and it just feels like, okay, they're sort of like the regular versions that we know, but just like dialed up to 11. I would like to see a little more like diversity in a way. But what's interesting is because of the evolution of the mainstream Poison Ivy, that if you sort of push this Poison Ivy in the direction that the mainstream Poison Ivy used to be going in as an eco-terrorist, then she will sort of end up in a very different place than the main universe Poison Ivy, but not necessarily because of what you're doing with this character, but rather the fact that the main universe Poison Ivy has diverged from that path in a lot of ways. So yeah, I just thought this was okay. It comes in right at number 5 for me. In a stronger week, it probably wouldn't have made my top 5. So that being said, I had to get a bunch of different covers because I couldn't decide which one I liked best. And there is a last page reveal, which is very intriguing. That has been hinted at. I talked about the cover for 20 being revealed with a hint of Dick Grayson Robin. Dick Grayson's in this issue, very, very briefly. But also something is revealed about Martha Kent that ties into another cover.
You mean not Martha?
Martha Wayne,
Kent.
sorry. Martha Wayne. It ties into Martha Wayne and her past, and that was another cover, I think the cover for 18, which was revealed recently, which has a villain group that, again, like I wish we were taking a little bit more time to introduce all these classic Batman villains. So I'm going to leave it at that because Rocky's going to have a lot more to say, and he can reveal who that villain group is and how they tie into Martha Wayne's past.
You're a Superman Batman movie fan, or?
Yeah, God, I hate that. I hate that movie. I like it better than Man of Steel, but Man of Steel is, that bar is so low, it's on the floor. So, anyway,
no.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I feel a little bit underwhelmed too with this version of Poison Ivy. Of all the, like, look, Scott Snyder is still in my book. I'm cutting him some slack here because we were talking before we went on air here, before we're recording, about how I'm nitpicking here, but goddamn, I can't deny the success. Snyder, and you alluded to it. I mean, he's Batman AF. He's hitting the ground running, and he's not going nonstop. And there's absolutely a part of me keeps thinking to myself, I keep asking myself, when is the shoe going to drop? When is the Absolute titles? When is it going to stop being so popular? When is Absolute Batman stop? When is the bloom going to come off the rose of the Absolute titles, and particularly Absolute Batman? Well, you know what? Snyder clearly has an attitude that clearly, it's never going to come off. And if it does, I'm going to go big and go home, and I'm going to keep going big. And that's exactly what he's doing. And just like Absolute Batman's great big Batmobile dump truck, he just keeps bowling on through and hitting us with these horror-like versions of the Rogues Gallery. And in this one, we get one for Poison Ivy. And this Poison Ivy is a little bit different. I really like how it starts off. I mean, we have this huge one of the buildings in downtown Gotham is literally infected. It looks like it's infected by a massive tree plant life, and Batman infiltrates it, only to discover he's got like chainsaws. It reminds me almost like the Chainsaw Man, the manga. He's got chainsaws on both hands. He's just epic, cutting his way through. Alfred tells him there's no sign of life anywhere, which is interesting. So even though Poison Ivy seems to be present, she seems to be in there. There's no life forms. Even the constructs. Commissioner Gordon sent his best men in. They apparently died and were killed, but yet they seem to be animated walking corpses of some kind, which are present in the building. And Batman is sort of discovering this as he goes. And Pamela Isley, she seems to be, it's not entirely clear, but Pamela Isley isn't just plants. It's a combination of like all various different sciences, like not just, like botany and all these other different types of sciences seem to combine to create and mix into whatever Pamela Isley was sort of trying to create here. She's very clearly, she's drawn from all six kingdoms of life, like in biology, you learn, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. You got all these species of life and plant life and animal life. She pulled from all of it. And so somehow that led to this horror show called The Absolute Poison Ivy. And it's, again, how Batman's going to defeat her, we're not clear. This is, it's almost insulting to call this a setup issue because it's pretty cool. I mean, I think it's, we've seen a lot of Poison Ivy, and you actually said it. We've had a lot of crazy versions of Poison Ivy in the mainstream DC universe, arguably as crazy as this one is. But this one is still pretty epic too. Definitely more of a horror show. It's interesting that the reveal at the end with Martha Wayne, Martha Wayne. It's worth noting that Martha and Jim Gordon finally almost kiss in this issue, and Bruce Wayne happens to see it, and he sort of walks away, and so Jim Gordon feels a little bit maybe guilty, and so it implies that Wayne. Did Bruce Wayne previously know that there was something going on between his mother and Jim Gordon, who is almost his de facto father figure in his life? Not really sure, but it hints at that Martha Wayne has a history with the Court of Owls, and that's really interesting because this we know in the Absolute Universe the Waynes aren't rich; they're not super rich, and at least in the mainstream DC universe in Gotham City, the Court of Owls is sort of associated with the ultra rich, the elite class, or almost like the elite, dare I call it the Epstein class, only, could they be worse? The billionaire class. How on earth did Martha Wayne, of all people, because she's not a billionaire, how did she become associated with the Court of Owls? So where is this going? And so that's what I find myself much more intrigued by that than I am with Poison Ivy per se. We also got hints that the pendant that Absolute Batman obtained from Absolute Wonder Woman in the crossover over in Wonder Woman's title, or pardon me, last issue, he's that he gave to Killer Croc. Wayland, upon putting it upon his skin, he appears to have shed some of his skin. Now, whether or not that healed Wayland and got rid of the Killer Croc sort of transformation, we don't know. Probably not, but we got hints of that. So, again, lots of different story elements here, all really well told, quite frankly. I think the pacing is really good. You talk about hitting the ground running. All this is happening while Batman's going through this nightmare scenario, trying to get to the bottom of what the hell Poison Ivy is, or this Pamela Isley, he's talking to Alfred. We're getting these snapshots and images of we get scenes of what's taking place elsewhere in Gotham. It's just another great issue. It's just a great issue. This was probably my least. I'm loving Poison Ivy in the mainstream universe. I'm looking, even this cover here, I'm thinking to myself, this is probably I'm probably the least invested in this Poison Ivy in the absolute universe, but it was still a great issue. And we know, you'd have to be living under a rock if you're a comic collector right now and not know about future solicitations of upcoming Batman titles and upcoming Batman covers, which are being leaked on Twitter and what have you. You alluded to them. It's a great time to be an absolute Batman fan, that's for sure. And, when is the bloom going to come off this rose? Well, I'm pretty sure if Absolute Poison Ivy has anything to do about it, there's going to be lots to bloom for time to come.
Yeah, a little bit hypocritical here, though. I've talked about introducing all these villains too quickly, villain groups too quickly. We have the Court of Owls coming up. All that being said, I am looking forward to seeing the absolute version of the Talons.
Yeah.
Because I think Talons, like as a, it's not really a character, although we did have the one that had his own title that James Tynion wrote. But yeah, just the concept of the Talons, reanimating a corpse and have it be like this mindless, really formidable foot soldier for the Court of Owls is awesome. So. All right. Well, that does it for the books we're going to talk about in detail. There are a few other single issues that are coming out this week. The Batman Adventures Mad Love #1, which is one of the early appearances of Harley Quinn, is getting a facsimile edition this week. We also have a second printing for Flash #27. And there's a second facsimile edition for Detective Comics #575. That is part 1 of Batman Year 2, which is... written by Mike W. Barr and interior art by Todd McFarlane for most of it. Alan Davis did the cover for that one. It's a very iconic cover. So that's getting a facsimile edition. And both of those facsimile editions, the Harley Quinn Mad Love and the Detective Comics, there's a foil version if you are so inclined. And then as far as collections this week, Absolute Wonder Woman Volume 2, collecting issues 8 through 14 of Absolute Wonder Woman. You can get it in hardcover or softcover, whichever you prefer. Batgirl Volume 2, Bloodlines trade paperback. This is the current Batgirl series written by Tate Bromball with art by Takeshi Miyazawa. Volume 2 collects issues 7 through 11 of that series. And then Green Lantern is getting trade paperback Volume 5. This is a Jeremy Adams series that's currently going on right now. That Volume 5 will collect issues 19 through 24. And then the Flash by Mark Waid Omnibus series is getting its 3rd volume in hardcover. Collects the issues of the regular series 142 through 163, plus a ton of other Flash stories around that same period of time, including the Flash Annual 10 through 13. I'm not going to list the rest off because it's too many to mention here, but it's 1,256 pages, mostly by Mark Waid, but there are some stories in there by the late Brian Augustyn as well. And then we have Shade the Changing Man by Peter Milligan, speaking of Vertigo, with art by Chris Bocciolo. That's getting Volume 2 of its omnibus, which collects issues 38 through 70 and a few other ancillary issues. 1,000 pages, $125. And then we've got Batman and Robin by Tomasi and Gleason. This is basically the Batman and Robin series from the New 52 after Grant Morrison's run ended. This is the 3rd volume. Trade paperback, collects issues 29 through 40 of Batman and Robin. And then finally, Green Arrow, The Golden Age Omnibus Volume 1, collecting the very first adventures of Green Arrow, including his first appearance in More Fun Comics #73. So it collects More Fun Comics 73 through 107, Adventure Comics 103 through 117, World's Finest 7 through 28, with a foreword from Roy Thomas, who is a legendary creator in his own right. 792 pages, $100 to get your hands on that. So those are the collected editions out this week. Time for our rankings. And I honestly don't remember who went first last week, so I'll just dive right in, especially since
Okay.
there's only 8 books this week. Number 8 for me, as I mentioned before, is Wonder Woman number 30. Coming in at number 7 is Catwoman number 84, basically because it was mostly a setup issue. Number 6 for me, just missing out on the top 5, is Nightwing number 135. At number 5 is Absolute Batman number 17. Coming in at number 4, the finale for John Layman on Titans with issue number 32. At number 3, Superman Unlimited number 10. And then the 2 issues that I had hard, I went back and forth because I really enjoyed these last 2 issues. I think they stood head and shoulders above everything that came out this week, partly because I'm such a huge fan of the Crime Syndicate. So Batman Superman World's Finest number 48 comes in at number 2. And coming in at number 1, I was really blown away. Maybe it's because I didn't know what to expect or had no expectations. But I thought Kyle Starks and Steve Pughe did an incredible job on End of Life number 1, the latest Vertigo title. And every one of the covers is fantastic. So, again, highly recommend everybody picking that up this week. All right, Rocky, give us your rankings.
Yeah. Well, my rankings are coming in at number 8, Catwoman 84. Coming in at number 7, I put Superman Unlimited, issue 10. Coming in at number 6, Titans 32. Coming in at number that's number 6, Titans 32. Coming in at number 5, Wonder Woman 30. Number 4, Absolute Batman 19. Coming in at number 3, End of Life number 1. What's that?
Absolute Batman 17.
Absolute Batman 17, sorry. And coming in at number 3 was End of Life. Kyle Starks is just doing a great job on that. Number 2, my 2 and 1. Number 2, I put Nightwing 135 because I love the way Dan Water sort of ended that storyline. I thought it did a great job, and the Crime Syndicate, Mark Waid, he deserves to be my number 1 consistently. I said rarely have I put World's Finest in number 1 ever on my top 5, but here the Crime Syndicate, I enjoyed it enough, so I'm going World's Finest issue 48. The Crime Syndicate is. I'm looking forward to that storyline, and I'm hoping it. I'm hoping it pays dividends down the road.
All right. Well, there you have it, everybody. My 1 and 2 are your 1 and 3. So yeah, we definitely a bit of a consensus this week, everybody. So we appreciate the support as always. Don't forget to head over to YouTube if you're listening to the podcast feed, audio only. Again, we appreciate it. But be sure to head over to YouTube and subscribe to Rocky's channel where this episode comes out every week. DC Spotlight, Comic Space Boom, exclamation point, like, comment, subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you know when new videos drop. And if you are preferring to listen audio only and you've discovered us on YouTube, again, that podcast feed, just go to whatever app or platform you get your podcast, do a search for The Comic Source and subscribe. Literally thousands of past episodes to go and discover and enjoy, as well as all the new content that comes out there. And if you are over on YouTube, then I encourage you to head over to the Comic Source YouTube channel as well. Again, ring that notification bell so you know when new videos come out. Like, comment, subscribe. So many interviews coming up later this year, convention coverage, all that sort of thing. So don't forget to let us know what you thought of this week's books down in the comments below. As I said, we appreciate the support as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.